Hey, you know what? I've had about enough. That is one of the phrases we say when we're starting to get angry. We're saying it's come up and I'm just kind of full of holding on to this emotion. I've had about enough. And then what? So you've had about enough. Well, everyone's going to stop and go, oh, he's had about enough. Part of that is posturing up to let everybody know the things that are going to follow. I'm going to grab out of my tool bag. There's going to be some cussing. There's going to be some pushing. There's going to be some, because I've had about enough. And so we're really making an announcement. I watch my chickens do this. I don't want to compare it to it, but it is true. There's a pecking order. I watch my chickens, bristle up, or my turkeys will just all of a sudden, they puff out their feathers or whatever, and then they just strut around. Really what they're saying to the other males is, I've had about enough. And then everyone's supposed to go, whoa, he's had about enough. And yet we're not getting to the issue. We're not solving it. We're not setting it up so that both parties can win. It's just like someone's trying to be the dominant factor, and they're the one who's had about enough. And we're all supposed to go, whoa, and bow down to that statement. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. People will be like, you don't think I've had about enough? I've had about enough too. And it's just a way of shutting that person down. Like the word whatever. You ever be into something and might even get just a little bit heated, and all of a sudden you're like really sharing your heart, and they're like, oh, whatever. Whatever is that, let me push you away. I just took control. There's nothing you can do about it statement. I just shut you out. Speak to the hand. Whatever. So I just thought I'd point that out as we're talking about anger resolution. I enjoy teaching anger resolution classes. I've done it for many years in the jails, and then just in people's houses, and just people wanting to know, what are the tools? Because there's a toolbox we should be reaching for, but it's not the one of the flesh. It's one of the spirit. And, we're headed toward the goal. We can read the Bible, and it tells us, let every person be quick to hear. It says in James 1:19, slow to speak, slow to anger. You don't get to jump those levels and all of a sudden you're at a 10. It's telling us what we should do. We're supposed to let this happen. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. When we are using our flesh tools, it's not going to produce anything that even remotely looks like God. It's going to look like flesh. Flesh came at flesh. It's a Cain and Abel moment. So we had an assignment last podcast, and I tied it back to the podcast before. We're supposed to be writing down how we were tempered. You got a paint can, you take it to Menards or someplace like that. You want a certain color, but it's white. And so now we're supposed to turn it into that color. All the different paint colors that go in, the different coating that they have even on the can that says, so much of number 15 and so much of number 10, all that goes in and you come out with your color. It's called a temperament, or tempering the paint. We have been tempered by life. This is C.O.R.E programs, and center of our relationships experiences really is another way of describing how we've been tempered by life. And so then we come out with a certain temperament. Now you can be born with, your personality, and you might just be a real loving person, easily, soft-spoken and all those kinds of things. But you can poke a Doberman and get bit quicker than you can, a golden retriever. But you poke a golden retriever long enough, it's going to bite you too. So it's good if we have that bend toward the personality who's a good communicator and all those different things. But everybody can get damaged by the thing that does not produce righteousness. Anger is not sin. It's what we do with our anger that then causes it to be an unrighteous moment. So we're supposed to be writing down our temperaments, and then we talked a little bit about, who those people were in our life, and especially people in authority, like an older brother or your parents or a school teacher. I had one school teacher that actually tempered me a certain way. And I had him 2 years in a row, and I wanted out of the class so bad. And by the second year, I was a bitter person toward that person. And so I've had to rewire my whole brain when it comes to how to think about that and unpack that differently. So if we're in a spot where we're constantly being harassed by someone and we don't have the tools of how to have a good boundary for ourselves, we're going to be hurt, and hurt always produces anger. And before I go on, I just want to say this. Anger has a voice that must be heard. The rule of anger is it must be heard. It can be heard in a very functional way or a dysfunctional way, but it needs to be heard. So what happens when we're not heard? We attack everyone around us because we're the victim and they're the enemy. And then when we don't get the results we want by being angry, we'll go into rage and start hurting people and ourselves. And or we'll just say, this isn't working, and the anger has to be heard. So where's it going to go? Right here. It's going to go toward hurting yourself. It's going to go toward, well, I'll just drink myself blind. I'll just, use drugs until I can't see straight. I'll just, go without food or whatever. This is really, it's going to take care of business. Well, actually, you sent your anger out and it didn't do what it needed to do when you sent your anger in, and it didn't produce what you needed it to. We're handling this wrong. But anger has a voice and it must be heard. So we have to remember that. Proverbs 14:29 says, whoever is slow to anger has great understanding. So if you climb that ladder, which was the next thing, we use the example of going from 1 to 10. If you're going to go from 1 to 10 and jump up that ladder, you're going to be in an unrighteous state. Because the most powerful state that you can be at is at a 1 in any given situation. If you look at a martial artist or a police officer or a SWAT team or whatever, people who have to confront stuff, the training that they should have, not everybody got this training, so they didn't all have the memo for that, so they don't have the grace to carry it out many times. But your most powerful spot is not when you're at a 10 and you're loud and you're scary and you're making big actions and all that. If you look at a good martial artist, they're standing very relaxed, and the group of guys or women are going to come after them and beat them up or whatever. They're not the one going, hoo, ha, and, flipping around and showing off or cussing out somebody or whatever, trying to scare everybody. They're in a position where it's like they're in the best spot to make decisions because they're at a 1. The person who's all adrenalized, not at a good spot, make dumb decisions. And later on, when you can think after the adrenaline's gone down, you're like, I should have thought about that differently. But the most powerful spot is to be at a 1. When I teach classes all over the place, if I ask people, what's your most powerful spot? And they'll say around a 9 or a 10. And it's like, no, that's your weakest area. Your tunnel vision will happen, like I talked about. Anger fixates. Adrenaline causes you to fixate on one point, one story, one thing, and you can't get off of it. And so there's no reasoning. There's none of this stuff where we can problem solve. There's no backing down. Somebody's going to get hurt. So you're not at the best place to save anybody else or yourself. So here we are, Proverbs 14:29. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding. That takes a bit to train ourselves like that if we've been tempered differently. Sometimes they have to start all over with the paint can, and that's kind of what God did with us to temper us differently. He makes us a new creation. But sometimes you can actually take a can of paint that's been messed up and say, that's not the actual color I asked for. And they will temper it again, and it will come out to that color. It's the craziest thing. But either way, God wants to do that in us. He's bringing about change. So if we're slow to anger, we have great understanding. But he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. Folly is like foolishness. Like it's a very foolish thing to do. Try to stop a car because you're so mad and the person's trying to take off and you're in front of it and you're screaming at them because you're really going to show them with their anger. Sorry, car's bigger than you. So you're not thinking. You're not thinking straight. Your anger is out of control. And the toolbox you grabbed for was the wrong one. There's a righteous way to go about something, and then there's an unrighteous way to go about it. So when you grab the unrighteous one, man, it's quick, it's swift. The righteous one can take time. The righteous one can take him changing your heart and your response or what you're going to say. It's going to cause you to slow down your thought process. It's going to cause you to put away the unrighteous ways of going at that person. But you're definitely not going to lay down. All right? You're not going to go, I'm just going to lay on the cross and let myself be crucified. If the Father asked you, like Jesus, to lay your life down, then do that. But in that moment, good chance he's not asking you to lay your life down and just be run over. So boundaries are good, but godly boundaries are better. So here we are. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So we're not supposed to go to bed at night still all jazzed up. Now, I'm a natural health consultant besides everything else. I like to have my fingers in all kinds of stuff, learning and growing. And one of the things I know about that is that when it goes down on your anger, you're not in the correct REM sleep. You're not in a spot where you're truly rested. Your subconscious works on unsolved problems 24 hours a day. So you may think, I went to sleep, I slept 12 hours. I was exhausted after that whole argument and everything. I couldn't even hardly get out of bed. Well, it works on problems 24 hours a day. True. But if it's working on something negative like that, all these cortisol, adrenaline, chemicals are going through your body, changing how you rest. And after a while, you won't be able to rest. It changes how you digest. It changes whether you are able to produce serotonin for your brain, which supports the synaptic nerves. I could just keep naming the things. So it's really important we don't go down on our anger like the sun goes down on that. We know it's going to be nighttime and we got to figure out how to go to sleep. That's where the husband and wife suddenly, they usually hold each other and now they're back to back and they're not going to look at each other and they pull the covers up and try laying away from each other all night. What a beautiful night's sleep that is, huh? It's not. So we're to let our anger, we got to figure out what we're going to do with it. Do you have a right to be angry? Probably. There's something that you're feeling that could be conveyed differently. There's something that is a wound from the past, might not even have to do with the present, that we do have to recognize. But you have to be able to say, all my tools, unrighteous tools, I'm putting them away. I choose to forgive my husband. I choose to forgive my wife. I choose to forgive whoever's involved. But we are going to address this. You have to give yourself that part of it, because what happens is people go, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. And you'll go on forgiving, and then you'll condemn yourself because you haven't only forgiven 100 times, and somehow you're failing the mission. No, we forgot to resolve it. We forgot that part that says, I forgive you, but we still need to talk about this. We can't just let this go. We need to talk about it. And so here we are, knowing that we're not supposed to go to sleep and let the sun go down on our anger because it's going to cause damage. Anything God says, when he even gives a suggestion, we should listen to it because he's absolute wisdom and we're not. And he's God and we're kind of not. So when we look at it that way, we come under his authority to get the best of who he is. He's just wanting to take care of family, and he'll demonstrate to us how we should take care of other people and how we should take care of ourselves. Love your neighbor as yourself. So if you're not going to run over your neighbor, then you don't let people run over you. I'm just letting that one soak. If I love them so much, I'm supposed to love my neighbor. They've been so mean to me or whatever. Okay, forgive, and don't run them over. But they're not also supposed to run you over. And then we call that Christian. That's a form of religious talk and chatter. And I call it schmoozing. If you look up the word schmooze, it means stupid talk because it doesn't have a base of truth that completes the equation. The equation is what always gives you the answer. So if 2 plus 2 is supposed to equal 4, you can't mess up the equation and go 7 plus 8 is 4. It's not going to work. And you can't tell someone that, you know. The other thing I want to just throw in here is, especially in a heated argument or whatever it is, when you finally get a chance to share your emotions, if that other person says, well, you shouldn't feel that way. These are ways of trumping that person, coming up with something that should stop them from proceeding. You just took control of the situation. Well, number one, they shouldn't feel that way, right? Okay, that feels like emotional rape because guess what? They already do feel that way. And now they should condemn themselves for feeling that way on top of everything else they're feeling. No, you feel what you feel and your feelings are real to you. Whether they have the correct base to come out of or not, your feelings are real to you. So just because I don't feel something that you feel doesn't mean your feelings aren't real to you. I need to validate that. I need to share where I'm coming from. I need to acknowledge, oh, well, that made you afraid. I wasn't afraid at all. So how am I going to recognize their fear? Yeah, when you looked at me that way, it made me afraid. And so then I started defending myself. So I didn't really know what to do. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, too late. They already did. So it'd be better to go back in the equation we're trying to get an answer to and fix that. And you do that by making sure the equation's right. Let's go at this a better way. So we've been writing down our temperament. We've been writing down how fast we go in certain situations, even from 1 to 10, and the times that we entered rage. There are people who can enter rage to such a degree they black out, and their body continues moving, and they don't remember what they did. It's very scary. But that starts with having permission to move from 1 to 5, 1 to 8, or whatever. So when we are disciplining our children, which means we're making them disciples, we're teaching them to, choose that other toolbox. No, you can't use this one. That's unrighteous. You can't be hitting your brother. You can't be stealing his stuff. You can't be kicking him in the leg. All of this kind of stuff. Those are unrighteous behaviors. We're tampering that. Like, no, 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 right? But most of the time, what's forgotten is what's in the good toolbox. We don't know. So we tell them, stop it. Knock it off. And then we get real stern with them. But did we role model to them what their other option was? Sometimes we do things because we never got role modeled the other option. We're just told, put that other toolbox away. I don't want to see that. Well, what's your other option? I don't know. I'm lost. So we're going to go through some of those things in the future podcasts and show you options and different ways of looking at things. Because once you know, you can't not know. And once you know, it'll hold you accountable to like, oh, that's right. I'm not supposed to use that toolbox. Ooh, I'm so tempted to just cuss you out right now. And then you realize, no, I already made a promise to God and I already am breaking that way of thinking. So I'm just going to put that in the toolbox and get it as far away from me so it's not even an option. I'm not even looking at it as an option. I have to come up with a different way of approaching the person or the situation. Oh, it's so hard. When my husband and I were first married, craziness, when everybody has heated discussions at least, or altercations, or, these different kinds of things, because we can't always agree. And so agreeing means I got to work this through. There's got to be a process you work through till we come to agreement. It's very important that we understand that we're working for both parties to win, not someone's the winner and they're the controller, but both parties to win, and then we can agree on it. I might not feel totally the same way as him and him not feel the same way as me or whatever. But we come to a place where like, well, I could see how you'd feel that way or whatever now, but I still think this or whatever. But we'll choose something that we can be in agreement to and move ahead. When you don't have that as your goal, then your goal really is to win. I need to win this. That's what I need to do. I'm going to be the winner. And so we'll keep those tools, we'll hone those tools, and then, we'll even hide behind them, where I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm really good at arguing. I always win. I'm a good debater. I'm a person, I remember everything." And so if they try to say this, I'll just tell them I just have it all written down in my head, and I just machine gun them with this kind of stuff. Well, that's cool and everything, but that's unrighteous. And we have to find a righteous way to come into agreement. When we stay out of agreement, people get hurt. We don't get to move forward. We separate ways. There's so many things that happen with no agreement. Now, there are situations where you might want to try to find a way where both parties can win, and the other party's like, "No, I want to win," and that's the end of that. I really don't want you to win at all. I don't think you deserve anything out of this, and so I'm going to be the winner. Well, then things are handled a little bit differently. But we never go to that unrighteous thing to produce a righteous thing. Just like God doesn't borrow from the devil's kingdom to teach us something. He doesn't go over and be like, cancer is not of God. It's of death. It's from the pit of hell. It's very tormenting. It's very treacherous. It's very evil. That's why it kills people, right? It's not God's will. It's not his ways. But one day God just says, I was trying to teach her something, and I didn't have enough tools. So I went over to the devil, knocked on his door, and be like, "Could I borrow cancer for grandma over here? Because I really want to teach her something." Now, can we learn something through our trials? Yes. But then we cannot say that God did that to us so we could learn. I'm just letting that sit for a little bit. Some of you are angry about things that have happened because we put it in a spot like God did this to us. No. He doesn't borrow from the devil's kingdom, and we don't borrow from unrighteousness to try to produce a righteous thing. I want this to be done right. I want it to be done fair. So I'm going to take all the tools from the unrighteous thing and use them on this other person, and then expect it to turn out righteous in the end. The right way of doing things is another way to describe the word righteous. And we're supposed to seek first the kingdom of God, his rulership, his domain, his ways of doing things, and his righteousness, his righteous way, his right way of doing things. And we will be filled. That's how we get the answers to our everyday life. We come into agreement with him. And then the world doesn't agree with that, right? So you can bring the truth to them, trying to get them to agree with that, and some will and some won't. But as long as you're in agreement with him, you're walking in peace because he's the Prince of Peace. So we wrote down how fast we go from 1 to 10. And if we're ever in a rage spot, that rage spot is the area where we said, I want something to stop, but I've been wanting something to stop for so long, and it isn't. And I'm pretty pissed about it. I'm just going to say it how people say it. That's not, I'm slightly annoyed. This is really irritating. It's no, you're pissed about it. It's like you're at this point of, And so what happens then is we can stay in that anger and be at that level, and we can't think straight to fight our way out of a wet paper bag at that point because we have so much adrenaline. We have to go to the one who's absolutely righteous. And it ain't your grandma. It's not your mama. It's not sister so-and-so. They can help. But you've got to go to pure righteousness, pure truth, and work out what's inside of you before you can go settle an argument between the two of you. So we write down whether or not we go from 1 to 10. And guess what? In the unrighteous toolbox, some of us have learned, skip all those steps in between. We'll just go to a 10, and that'll scare everybody, and then I'll get my way. That's what I'm after, my way or the highway, baby. I'm going to get this. And so we'll even use that as a tool. So after we wrote down these different things, we should be starting to see ourselves. Well, here's how I was tempered. Okay, that's might be where a lot of it came from. Here's what I learned in society, that I can use my temper to get somebody to feel scared or give me something that I want. I mean, there's so many different things that you can misuse anger for. Um, I don't feel heard, so that's why I just go to rage right away because I know I wanted something to stop and it never will. That's what rage says. I want something to stop, but I believe it never will. So I really don't care what happens to you, and you don't care what happens to me. So let's roll this, right? So that's where the fights go. That's where those things head to. And then we feel so condemned in the end that there's something wrong with us, that we can't control ourselves. But we're also still angry that no one's listening. Everyone has a story, and every story has a right to be heard. Everyone's has a story. Every story has the right to be heard. I want to hear you out. If you're in counseling with me, I want to hear you out. What is the base of that anger? The underneath is what's supporting the anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. What's the first emotion you're feeling? We have to be able to identify that. So there's a lot you're journaling now. There's a lot you'll have to do in layers because you're peeling an onion. And if you set an onion here, right here in front, and you could see that it's an onion, but you might not smell that it's an onion till you peel the crusty stuff off the outside. And then you're like, it smells like an onion in here. And then you peel it again, and it's like, whoo, it's getting stronger. And as you peel it again, your eyes will start watering as you get closer to the core. It's the same way with us. We have to sit on this long enough that we write it out so we can see it, hold ourselves accountable to it, and really mull it over. Sometimes our first answers are the angry answers. Sometimes our second answers are more real, of like, yeah, my mom did have a temper problem. And that's why I hide out a lot. That's why I isolate. That's why whatever it is that it caused in you, and I can't speak up and I just get angry at myself because I want to say something and I can't speak up. Anger produces anger when it's misused. Just stating, like, hey, kids, we're not jumping on the new furniture. That's just not going to happen here. Technically, that's at your lowest point of anger. A little red flag came up and said, we're not doing this. We want something to stop. I don't have to walk in the room and go, hey, and then hit something and then throw something and say, you blankety blank kids that are jumping on the couch, knock it off. I don't have to do that. If there's discipline that's needed, if there's those different things, we'll move into that. They'll understand we're moving down the road on this thing, and you're going to obey. It's not your furniture. You didn't pay for it. You have the privilege of using it. And the rule here is no jumping on it. So we don't have to leave that one. Where are you on the 1 to 10? And how often have you just been so enraged? I have a very strong heart for people, of compassion for people who have been enraged because you weren't born that way. This says a lot has happened to you where you did not feel heard. So these tools in the toolbox is the thing you're supposed to be working on now. We have these other things you go revisit, the paint can and these different things. Now we're working on the toolbox. What is your drug of choice? Are you loud? Are you pushy? Do you make big statements? Do you not say anything and then all of a sudden say something that scares everyone? You pull this lever that's just like, well, I'm done. I'm out of here. And everyone goes, out of here? What does out of here mean? Well, we're not going to communicate that. We're just going to leave those people hang in that spot where the kids are crying and the wife is afraid or the man is like, where are you going? And I'm not going to answer that, right? Because I've had about enough. Enough of what? Let's talk about that. If you can't talk about it civilly between the two of you because you've developed a pattern, then that's where a counselor is good. To have that third party, not to arbitrate. I'm not a big believer in arbitration counseling where I got to sit in front of two people and figure out who's the most wrong. All I care about is always in every situation, pretty much both people were wrong on something. So we both have to own something. Right? We have to look at that. But I'm not going to choose a favorite. Sometimes guys will think when they come to counseling with me that I'm going to automatically sway to the wife because I'm a woman. And not going to happen. I'm looking for behaviors. I'm looking for the symptoms first. You'll tell me all about the symptoms, but then you have to be willing to peel the onion to the point that if it stings, where your eyes are just, I got to cry about this. I'm getting to the core. That's what I'm after. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care about any of that. And so that's where I'm not a big arbitrator type of counselor for that reason. Um, and the same thing in ministry, same thing as a pastor. I always use the term and kind of laugh about it. If you know the story of Solomon, when they brought the baby before him and the two women were fighting, one was the true mom and one was not. Oh, he had such wisdom just to say, well, all right, I heard both sides here. Let's cut the baby in half. And the true mom said, don't do this to my child. Just go ahead. She can have him. That way at least he's alive. And he knew that's the one. And when he said cut the baby in the half, the other one was almost, arrogant about it. Like, well, yeah, let's do that then if that's what she wants. That wasn't the real mom. And if it was, she didn't deserve to have the baby. So that's more what we're looking like. And sometimes I have to throw something out there that's kind of like cutting the baby in half so I could see what's really real, because I'm trying to get to the core of the onion. That's what I'm doing. And so let's say you never come to counseling with me and you don't have a counselor, can't afford a counselor or whatever. You can get to the core of the onion yourself, but you have to have that other toolbox. So that's why you have to stay with me and other places that are teaching how to handle this to get new skills. Because if you don't have the verbal judo to be able to talk appropriately, if you've never been role modeled the skill or where even this box of righteousness is that I can grab the right ways of saying things, then we're all just telling you no. Stop being angry. Here, take this medication so you don't be angry. Don't stop. When the toolbox is still sitting there, and because we don't know how to put it away, nobody showed us that. And the other one's not even an option because we don't even know where it is. You see, God's love is absolute wisdom, and his boundaries are true. And he is not a man that he can lie. And so we can trust in the fact that these scriptures I read just gives us little tiny bits of principles. But if you get into his word, you'll see that there's a time and a place for anger, or the emotion of anger, because it says I want something to stop. I'm not just letting anybody just run over me. But then how to carry that out in a righteous way, where what you're looking for is I'm going to give that other person absolute grace to do what's right, and I'm going to do what's right. And if they choose not to do what's right, I went about this the right way. And I could feel good in my heart just doing that. So it's really important what toolbox you're grabbing for. So you have to name yours, right? When I had to name mine, it was uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable. And I still wonder if I have some kind of tool in my back pocket I don't know about, because sometimes stuff comes out of you. You're like, where did that come from? That was so not how God would do stuff. I got to rethink this. I didn't know I had that tool. I'm going to go ahead and give that tool away. When backed into a corner, any good dog, for instance, you can back into a corner and you got a stick and you're just backing him there or whatever. And the best dog will bite you eventually. And it goes so against their character. It goes so they pulled something up in a desperate time. So sometimes we're acting out because we were so desperate. We were backed into a corner. And we can't use excuses, but we just know what happens, right? Because we are 100% responsible for our own behaviors. We can say, though, you backed me in a corner, and that's what came out of me, and I'm sorry, right? I'm not going to deny that happened. I'm not going to take all the blame for everything. I'm going to own my part of it, though, and you need to own your part, what you're doing back at me in a corner. That's an unrighteous behavior. And we're not going to have a conversation like that again. All right? So now we're identifying tools. And tools are loudness. Tools are, let me say it this way. We record everything through our 5 senses. That's how your brain records whether or not you enjoyed something, whether or not something was traumatic or whatever. You record it through your 5 senses. So also how you recorded now, you can divvy out through your five senses. Even your feel that's supposed to be there to hold someone's hand can end up being a slap in the face. Even that area where you see things where love can just come out of your eyes can have this look to it. And your eyes convey the message of dominance, right? Even you can use your voice to be so loud that it scares people. And you figured out, I'm going to win this argument because I'm so loud. These are all tools that are not of our Father's kingdom. And you reach for the wrong box. But I want you to write out the tools that you use, the threats that you've said, the things that came out your mouth, or another one that you can do to harm another person is plug your ears, kind of saying, I ain't listening to you. I don't hear you. It's called white knighting, where you're just, all right, should I say, it's called silent knighting, where you just silence. I can't hear you. I don't care about anything you said. It's very punishing, and it's a way of dominance. So name your poison, because we have to face that. So we're facing where temperament came from. We're facing how fast we climb the ladder, 1 to 10, and do we cross over into rage? And we're facing this now. What tools have we been using? I don't want to just leave you hanging. We're going to get this next podcast out, but I think you really need to sit on this for a bit. And you might want the answer right away. Well, I see this in myself. So how do you answer that? How do you answer that? No, it takes a bit to really see yourself. You might see the surface things and go, okay, but to really pay attention to how you talk, and whether or not you're using facial expressions to dominate someone, what phrases you use, where you sit. Did you know just sitting at the table in a certain spot can be honor? Like, that's Dad's chair. We want him to be able to sit there. Or making an announcement, I don't want anybody sitting in this chair. It's my chair. Well, now that's abuse. Many times years ago, there was a show called Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker had his own chair, and Edith could not sit in that. That was his chair. And it's like a possessive kind of feeling that showed he's the ruler of the house, rather than like, oh, honey, why don't you sit here? It's a bigger chair. It'll fit you better, or more comfortable, or whatever. You can see the TV better. It's a totally different thing. It gives you the freedom to honor them, but demanded honor is abuse. So think on this and pray on this. I think we're all tired of the phrase, I've had about enough. And so if you've really had about enough, let's do something about it. See you next time.